Okay, I think we are officially rolling. It's 7 o'clock on the button. So we're going to have some details for health professionals, and reality is we could probably spend a long time on that. So I'm going to highlight some of the things that I think are important, and then we are going to open it up in the end to questions. So for now, I've got everybody muted, and that's by design because when I've done this before, when we had people not muted, then there was a lot of interruptions. So I think the first question that every healthcare provider has or maybe should have is we need to know that the things that we're recommending for our patients are both safe and effective. And so I'm going to share a lot of data that validates all of that. One of the first things that's really powerful is I have lectured all over the world, and I can tell you that the U.S. is more allowing than a lot of countries in terms of what they allow in. Asia is incredibly restrictive. Mexico is far more restrictive. Canada is more restrictive. Europe is more restrictive. We're in 53 countries, including everything that I just mentioned. And none of those countries require any warning label on any product. So 53 governments had said, hey, come on in, use our products, no issues with any of them. There's no safety concerns. So I did not find any human toxicity studies. In fact, those would be kind of rare unless, they gave people products and they got really sick and then they decided to look into it. But they did a dog study, and they literally gave dogs 2 different doses, 13 grams of Ganoderma per kilogram body weight and 24 grams of Ganoderma per kilogram body weight for over 13 days, almost 2 weeks. I don't know why they picked that number, but there was no signs of toxicity. So when you extrapolate that to our products, if someone made a really strong black coffee, they would need to drink 136 gallons of it a day, every day. That's at a body weight of 100 pounds to not have any toxic symptoms. So it's got a very good safety profile there. So I literally just looked up the PubMed studies today, and it's odd that I don't have that open, but I think I'm going to find it and put it on my screen. There's almost 3,000 now PubMed studies under 2 different names. That would be Ganoderma and that would be reishi. So when you look at that and everything that's out there, it's awful amazing that with all of those studies, and I'll copy this. Let me see if I can do that. Come on now. Or maybe I can't. Maybe I can share this screen instead. Or maybe I'll just tell you the search that I did today before coming in. When I searched the term Ganoderma, 1,877 studies under the term Ganoderma, 875 under the term reishi, and there's a smattering under the name Lingxi as well. So when you look at it, this is one of the most proven products of all time. I happen to like this one particular study here because literally it names a number of conditions. And this is where we get into a challenge because our own FDA says, you know what, you can't name a health condition. So this particular study says Ganoderma is good for liver problems, including chronic hepatitis, kidney problems, including nephritis, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, high triglycerides, arthritis, neurasthenia, which is kind of like a depression with apathy, insomnia, bronchitis, asthma, gastric ulcers, hardening of the arteries, weakened immune system, diabetes, anorexia, and cancer, all mentioned by name in one particular study. And I thought that was pretty fascinating. But when you look at most of the people that we're going to interact with, they have really 3 concerns. They want to look better, feel better, and live longer. So the term Ganoderma Lucidum literally translates as bright and shiny skin. And when I go to the peer-reviewed literature, the only really skin study that I found is that it actually protects against sun damage and photoaging. And, I can tell you that I spend a lot of time in the sun. And I'm also protective, right? I'll get to my 20 minutes and I'll put my sunscreen on. My son, being probably not yet at the age of wisdom, goes outside every single day shirtless in the sun. He hasn't had a burn in 5 years. I still don't think it's a good idea, but the Ganoderma is profoundly effective that way. Here's a couple of patients that we had actually seen with some incredible benefits. And just shrink that down a little bit, maybe a little bit. But the guy on the right, you can see he has basically vitiligo. And see if I can shrink that in a little bit. Maybe I can't. And the woman there has acne rosacea. We don't want to necessarily name the conditions, but both of them with Organo products just had an extreme turnaround. Certainly we know that the world has a big obesity problem, no pun intended. And by the way, I don't know if any of you went to the Millionaire Mentorship or Millionaire Mastermind, but we had a team member that took this text, sent it out to most of her phone base, and sold over $1,000 worth of products without returning a single phone call. So this is a pretty good text. I can possibly share that with you later, and they've got a lot of good pictures that tell a better story. So when we start looking at what our shakes actually do, Ganoderma and fat loss, this is from a 2016 PubMed study, but Ganoderma is literally proven to reduce appetite. Now understand that a lot of what appetite's about is nutrient density, and it's also neurochemistry. So when you have a really nutrient dense food that modulates serotonin and dopamine, that can be really, really good for appetite reduction. It's good for decreased absorption of lipids, especially toxic lipids. It helps insulin work better, meaning we have less insulin than floating around. What I like to tell people is that insulin has a message and it says store fat, don't break down fat. So we don't want too much of that floating around with weight loss. Ganoderma is proven to enhance thermogenesis. By the way, coffee would actually speed that up even a little bit more. And probably one of the more amazing benefits is actually the impact that it has on the microbiome. So even now the medical literature is defining something called the obese microbiome. And we know that these obese individuals have bugs in their gut that actually convert non-digestible fiber, human beings can't digest it, to short-chain fatty acids that actually get absorbed. And so I always tell the story, for years I thought people were lying to me about their diet because they'd eat really clean, high-fiber diet, lots of salads, and somehow they couldn't lose any weight. Well, sure enough, with the wrong balance of bugs in their gut, they are absorbing a lot more calories than the average person. And they've even done studies where they've done microbiome transplants. They've done it in both humans and animals, but this is a pretty powerful study where these were identical twin mice and fed the exact same diet. The mouse that had a fecal transplant with an obese microbiome became more obese. One of the things that my patients and athletes alike really enjoy about Ganoderma is its really, really, really powerful anti-inflammatory mechanism. So it modulates at least 5 different inflammatory signals. We had a pretty big hurricane. It seems like it was almost 2 weeks ago, and Kelly and I were literally fighting water from coming in our back door. So we were filling out 5-gallon buckets, running it through the house and dumping it down the driveway for 4 straight hours. And we did that for 4 hours. The first night, kept water from coming in, did it for about an hour and a half. The second night, kept water from coming in. But the third morning, Kelly just woke up so sore, she says, you know what? If we have to do it again, I don't know what's going to happen because I can barely move. Well, she took a handful of spores, and within an hour, she says, I can't believe this. I feel really, really good. And we've certainly had a lot of people that have had similar reports. When it comes to athletes, this is a guy named Stephen McEwen, ran 100 marathons in 100 days, in the Guinness Book 5 times. I actually did his nutrition consult, and he was consuming Organo red tea, which has both Ganoderma and cordyceps. And for endurance athletes, that combination is proven to reduce cortisol and improve testosterone. We've got a nice video of Ulysses. This guy, he's a 3-time world champion natural bodybuilder, even though that's hard to imagine. He literally fell in love with our product with 1 cup of coffee, as did people like Manny Pacquiao. So it's going to be really, really good for athletes, but fully recognize that that's not our typical patient. So we see a lot of people struggling with pain. And this was a study on fibromyalgia. It was an exclusive female study, but they literally gave women about 6 grams of Ganoderma a day for 8 weeks and had dramatic reduction in the pain of fibromyalgia. And this was a double-blind, placebo-controlled trial where they compared Ganoderma to drugs for the pain relief of rheumatoid arthritis. And Ganoderma just crushed it. And by the way, if you're on our coffee team, I'll load all these slides up in the Dropbox, and you are all welcome to them. Some people suggest that sleep is our most powerful anti-inflammatory, and I'm kind of on that bandwagon as well. But literally, people that consume Ganoderma fall asleep faster, sleep deeper longer, and wake up more refreshed. And we actually do have data in animal studies that animals consume it can live longer. So I'm going to address that a couple different ways, but this was a study that was published in Public Library of Science. And because they could control everything with mice, one group of mice just got a regular diet. The other group got that exact same diet and Ganoderma. The mice that got Ganoderma lived 9 to 20% longer. So within the article, they said if that would extrapolate to human years, that would be 7 to 16 extra human years. So we look at what's going on out there, and this is one that I'll read to you a little bit, and maybe the next one too. But we still know that cardiovascular disease is still the top killer in the world. And we also know that about half the people that have a heart attack, the first thing they present with is half of them are dead when they arrive at the emergency room. So here they said that Ganoderma basically has what's called a fibrinolytic protease. In other words, it breaks up blood clots. And this was a rat study when they gave rats a clotting agent. Here's what it said. Ganoderma produced significant inhibition of thrombotic death or paralysis, so protect them from having heart attacks or strokes, at a dose of 60 micrograms per kilogram body weight. Now, as an example, for me, I'm your classic 70-kilogram male, so by the time I have 2 cups of black coffee, I've got that therapeutic dose. It says, while aspirin produced a significant inhibition of thrombosis at 10 to 20 milligrams per kilogram. So if we take up that dose, I would have to have 700 milligrams a day of aspirin, right? And I couldn't walk down the street without my feet bleeding. If I bumped my head, my brain would bleed out. So that would be a real bad deal. This was a study on Ganoderma for surgical patients, and it was 2005 study in an anesthesia journal. It said prospective randomized double-blind placebo-controlled study of the platelet and global hemostatic effects of Ganoderma lucidum in healthy volunteers. They have these healthy volunteers take 1.5 grams a day, that's 1,500 milligrams, it's a pretty good dose, for 4 weeks. And here's what it said. Ganoderma lucidum ingestion over 4 weeks was not associated with impairment of blood clotting. So in the conclusion of the article, it says this: the use of Ganoderma lucidum preoperatively is unlikely to increase the risk of surgical bleeding in otherwise healthy patients. My daughter actually had a sinus surgery. It went very, very well. I had a shoulder surgery taking Ganoderma. Went very, very well. No issues with that. So it's really, really good to modulate cardiovascular risk. So we know it prevents clotting. In the earlier articles that I mentioned as well, it also lowers blood pressure in an effective way. So here's one that's pretty powerful, and I might try to expand it for you. But in Canada, the health claim that they make on Ganoderma is that it's an immune modulator. And I always like Dean Black's explanation of the immune system. The immune system is designed to protect us, and it protects us from things that come into the body from the outside or things that happen on the inside. So here we have studies in the upper left that shows that Ganoderma literally blocks replication of the HIV virus. I may open it up and show you the study on the herpes virus, which is pretty fascinating. But human papilloma as well is down at the bottom. I have a video testimonial of a woman had stage 4 cervical dysplasia, super close to cervical cancer. The doctors were recommending a hysterectomy, and she was devastated just simply because she wanted to have children and she hadn't had any yet. Well, I did a consult with her and I showed her this study. I said, look, why don't we just make it go away? And it was a study on Ganoderma and HPV, and it showed that 88% of people that consumed Ganoderma for 60 days completely eradicated HPV. She did that at 30 days, but not only did she get rid of it, she also had no detectable cervical dysplasia as well. So complete and total resolution. So if you look in the middle, Ganoderma is proven against a ton of cancers, and I used to list 10, but now there's 11. Literally, I found a 2017 study that shows that Ganoderma is also good for lung cancer. So literally, they have peer-reviewed medical evidence that Ganoderma is effective against breast cancer, inflammatory breast cancer, prostate cancer, leukemia, lymphoma, multiple myeloma, cervical cancer, melanoma, colorectal cancer, pancreatic cancer, and lung cancer. It also is shown to kill H. pylori and even staph. And so in my own clinical experience, we've seen it effective against MRSA, methicillin-resistant Staph aureus. So the beautiful thing about Ganoderma, incredibly safe, incredibly effective. It's the backbone of all that we do. But they also released a new detox product. It's an 8 superfood combination. And I always tell people that one of my favorite references is this one from Clinical Chemistry, 1996, where they talk about the symptoms of chronic poisoning. And those include fatigue, sleep disturbance, intestinal distress, allergy symptoms, headaches, confusion, and anxiety. And I've said for the last 25 years of clinical practice, if you got rid of those symptoms, I would probably have to do something else. So what they've done is they've combined 8 different superfoods. And so Ganoderma, certainly we've already talked about. Burdock, that berry there is called acai. Always one of those tough ones to announce. Chamomile, bilberry. You might have a hard time calling blueberry a superfood, but in my book, it qualifies. Licorice and aloe. When I typically would teach detox, I mentioned that, we classically think of the liver, the lungs, the kidneys, the bowels, and the skin as the organs of detox. But they also include support for lymphatic cleansing, blood cleansing, immune support, stress buffering, and sleep support. And those are all really, really powerful. And I was actually shocked at how incredibly delicious this formula is. It's a pink lemonade flavor. And I've mixed it with, whether you want to talk about mixing with OGX, mixing it with Ultra Clear, mixing it with whatever type of medical food or functional food you want. It adds a nice punch to it and increases the efficacy, the taste, and therefore you get more compliance and more efficacy. So when we move into their new energy product, that's actually one of those things that I've always found universal. Whether I have an Olympic athlete or a professional athlete, they want more energy. And certainly those people that don't have much at all want more energy. But one of the magic foods for energy is actually guarana. And so I read quite a few articles and even some of the folklore on it. But when hunters were going through the Amazon, it was written that they could actually consume this, and literally they could go a couple of days on the hunt without being hungry and having incredible focus. So guarana is actually a blend of super fast energy, and it's got a number of buffers within it that also have a very slow, sustained energy release. Rhodiola is an adaptogen that I've used for a number of years. I absolutely enjoy it, and this is something proven to buffer the stress in the body and smooth out the energy response. Ganoderma is also in this product. Ganoderma is a nitrate donor. In the body, nitrate breaks down to nitrite, breaks down to nitric oxide, and so that supports one nitric oxide pathway, and arginine is the other pathway. Now, keep in mind that arginine is acted on by an enzyme called nitric oxide synthase, and the activity of that enzyme decreases with advancing age. But these energy drinks, the demographic is actually usually somewhere between kids that are age of 12, 13, 14 years old to mid-20s. So they'll actually be able to use that arginine and convert it into nitric oxide. That one's got a delicious peach mango flavor, super low calorie. It's actually got 20 calories, which is pretty amazing. More cost effective than anything on the market. Like everything else, just add water and you get delicious, smooth, lasting energy. So the point I want to make about their products, again, no warning labels in over 50 countries and no known toxicity. So super fabulous products. So with that said, what I think I'm going to do is if anybody has any health question at all, and I've done this in a number of cities, especially where we have a health-minded audience, I just ask, if you have a question, can Ganoderma help with? And almost every time when someone asks that question, I've read a related PubMed study to it. So those are the references that I wanted to share with you. There's quite a few of them, and I will post them in the group so everybody has access to them. But does anybody have any questions? If you do, unmute yourself, announce yourself, and let's have a little conversation. Anybody at all? I see someone unmuted. Go for it.
Yes, hi. I'm Jeremy, and I wanted to know the differences between the spores, mycelium, and the Ganoderma.
Yeah, there's a great question. So there's 3 different parts of the plant. And by the way, one of my first associate doctors, actually was my second associate doc, is a world-class herbalist, Nick Weed, started a company called Weed Botanical. And I wrote forward to his book called Herbal Virtues. And the herbalists recognized that plants, each different part of the plant has a different active component. And so the mycelium is the root system, taught by a guy named Paul Stamets. And it's actually entitled 6 Ways That Mushrooms Can Save the World. But Paul Stamets says that the mycelium is actually the internet of the earth. He says there's solid evidence that when someone steps in the forest, the mycelium communicates the signal throughout the forest to all the other mushrooms. So that's absolutely pretty amazing. The Ganoderma Lucidum is the flowering body, and that has all of the components that are within the mushroom. The spores are how the plant replicates, and so some of the components are 75 times more concentrated. There's also 2 really tough shells around the spore, and so Organo has patented the process where they have over 99% nutrient bioavailability. They patented the process to crack both shells. So when they compared to the competition, the next closest competitor that they found had 15% nutrient bioavailability. So the spores are what we do the most with. You know, I wanted to make a comment when I was talking about cancer. They gave an award to a guy on stage this weekend. This is a man, he looked like he was maybe 40 years old, diagnosed 2 years ago with a really aggressive prostate cancer, given a year to live in spite of any medical intervention that they were recommending. And he said, the heck with it, I'm not going to have my life ruined with surgery and chemo. So he started taking, believe it or not, a whole bottle of spores a day, 90 spores a day. He's been doing that for almost 2 years. So there's a little price to it, right? If you're a wholesale buyer, it's like still $67. But his lab markers are dramatically down. His inflammatory markers are normal. He feels really, really good. He's enjoying life. So I didn't hear him say that his cancer is in complete and total remission. I'm excited to hear that at some point in time. But I'm going to start dosing this stuff even bigger because, again, there is no known toxicity to it. But, Jeremy, that's a great question. And I'm assuming by your wonderful accent, are you in French Canada? And I muted you because there was a little background. But Montreal area or where? All right, beautiful. All right, so you're muted again. But if anybody wants to say anything, do you know how to unmute yourself? Unmute yourself and let's have more questions. Anybody at all? One more?
Yes.
Go for it.
In the, whatever the coffee, like the black coffee or green coffee, how much of what's the amount of Ganoderma in it?
Yeah, so each product has a little bit different amount. It's interesting because I really pushed them and they released that to me. But I don't like it getting out because people are trying to mimic us now. But the black coffee has 175 milligrams of Ganoderma Lucidum. From memory, the latte has about 850. They're buffering the sugar. The mocha has about 1,200, and the hot chocolate has about 1,500. The king of coffee and then the teas all have 250 milligrams. The king of coffee has the Ganoderma spores. So every cup has a therapeutic dose. Now, they had a lot of people wanting to be copycats on products, so they wouldn't even tell me the amount of Ganoderma in the shakes, but they said it was a therapeutic dose comparable to the products that have some sugar in it. So I'm going to guess that the shakes probably have about 600 milligrams because they only have 7 grams of sugar. Any other questions? Anything at all. So I'm actually going to bring up a question that people should have, and I certainly had. So when they have released their energy drink, they are competing with Red Bull and Monster and all those things like that. They have a formulator that's been formulating for 30 years. And when she looked at what all these products were sweetened with, a lot of them were sweetened with sucralose, which I absolutely do not like. I don't like sucralose at all. So literally the developer sent me so many articles about how sucralose is in over 50 countries, recognized as safe, all this other stuff. They have a number of toxicity studies. You know what? I still don't like it. And so I'm pushing Organo hard to get rid of it and give it all natural ingredients. But with that said, it does taste amazing. I actually am pretty well versed in kinesiology, as are a handful of people on the team. A number of us tested it, and we showed that what was in it, the Ganoderma, the rhodiola, the guarana, the combination of the natural nutrients, there's also B vitamins and vitamin C and taurine, gives it a real positive. So it's still a good product, even though I'm in favor of the sucralose. So I had someone who's a real health nut over at my house yesterday, and she said, you know what, I just can't, I can't do that. I can't do the sucralose. I said, well, what if we labeled everything was in the air and you actually saw all the toxins in the air? Would you be comfortable breathing that? She said, probably not. I said, okay, well, can we agree then that breathing, even with the toxins in the air, is better than not breathing? And she said, well, yeah, I guess I have to agree to that. I said, okay, can we agree then that we're not going to switch healthy people that aren't doing energy drinks into this product, but we are going to try to switch the energy drink market, people drinking Monster and Red Bull, to this, and it's definitely a better choice. And she agreed with that too. So, okay, so Kelly just mentioned, Kelly, do you have this number from corporate? I thought it was 37 milligrams. So what you also said is it's the second to last ingredient, and it's a much lesser quantity than the other products. But even with that said, I don't like it. So any other questions out there?
Can you hear me, Dr. Rakowski?
I can. It sounds like Kevin. And somehow when you unmuted yourself, your beautiful face showed up on my screen. So
yes,
the recorded version. Happy day, Kevin.
Hey, happy day to you. The detox, would that be every day, all the time, or how would one, go about using the detox?
Well, I like it, and I think for people that aren't doing any detox, it would be a great thing for them. I'm still a big fan of the medical foods. I've been promoting detox for decades. I put people on an intense week with medical food shakes, and now I'm going to add this as a botanical blend to do two things: increase the effectiveness and increase the flavor, and well, really three things: increase the buffer. And but again, we're using all safe nutrients, and some people wanting to do more of it, that's just fine. These are all superfoods, and we certainly know that the world needs better nutrition. So as much as they want to drink of it, that's great. I think they're going to see that they're going to feel a lot better. Some of the things that people really notice when they do a good detox is improved energy, improved sleep, improved immune function, and often a fair amount of fat loss. Toxins are one of those things that can be an endocrine disruptor, a metabolism disruptor, and some people are really stuck because they don't address that component. So, people that wouldn't normally end up in my office, which is, easily the vast majority of the population, they now have the opportunity to put something really, really good in their body.
Fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome. Great question. Anyone else with a question?
Can you hear me?
I can. And
you can. Wonderful. This is Maria, Dr. Todd Stevens, acupuncturist. How are you?
Happy, beautiful day, Maria.
Yeah, thank you. I have a question for you. What would you recommend with the detox and for weight loss? Like, how many would you recommend a day for someone?
Well, it depends on how stuck they are, right? So I've seen people that are really metabolically broken. So I'm a big fan of a ketogenic diet, a little bit of a lower calorie, certain very low glycemic index. I'm a big fan of exercise. I will often put my patients that are really, really stuck on an intense 1 week ultra clear detox where they, 4, 5, 6 shakes a day. And now that we're going to be blending in this and that'll work well. So it depends what your tools are. I know with Dr. Todd, you're going to have those available to you.
Definitely.
You can start blending this in with OGX, and I think you're going to see an improved response to OGX. Even though it's
Okay.
so,
Would you tell people to do like one with each shake?
yeah, that's a good dose.
Like
and
2 a day?
So that's the plan, right?
Okay.
We have plenty of people that have done more than that. And by the way, we can really, instead of thinking of OGX as a weight loss, which it works so well with, it's a really good body comp. So there's some people that have, developed more of an athletic physique or even put on muscle consuming it because it's got super high quality whey protein. But if you're going to gain weight, obviously they're not going to be on a restricted diet, but more where they're taking in a few calories. But it's
what do you think about like my 13-year-old who is working out, he plays hockey, plays soccer. He's trying to gain weight. Like,
Yep.
Would you add in a couple shakes a day of the OGX?
Absolutely. Or even more than that, and you might consider adding things like branched chain amino acids, which are in high concentration in whey, which is there, but there's certainly things that can put more weight on. At 13, he's at a prime point in his life, hitting puberty, getting some good testosterone to put on some muscle.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. Thank you for bringing up the sucralose. That was actually my question right before you brought it up, but I couldn't unmute myself.
You know what? I'm glad you found a way to do that. I got to tell you, I was so excited. And then when I read through all the ingredients, I saw the sucralose. My heart dropped. It's like, you got to be kidding. Why did you put that in there?
That's how I felt.
Yeah. But they work with someone who's one of the top formulators in the world. She formulated OGX, so she knows what she's doing. And by the way, I had conversations with her too, and she said, Bob, we couldn't get the taste right. We tried stevia, we tried other things, we couldn't get it right. And I just basically told her, keep working at it, because as soon as you're going to dramatically improve the overall health presentation of the product and the efficacy, in my opinion.
Right. I know when my body doesn't do very well, and I tried it today, Todd gave me a sample from the expo, and it didn't bother me, where usually sucralose will. So I'm kind of excited about that. Maybe it's a low enough amount for people who are sensitive to it. I don't know.
Well, I think there's two things. The good is really good, and the bad is in a lesser quantity than almost every other product. So, if that's any consolation, that is. But it's always the clinical trial. And so I tested it kinesiologically on people. I drank it. I don't drink sucralose. And I just went, holy cow, that's actually a pretty good product for energy. So in Vegas, we had so much going on. I don't ever do without sleep, but I literally went 4 straight nights with an average of 2 less hours than I get. So I needed that energy drink the final day, and it worked quite well for me.
Great. Well, we'll see you in Mexico.
I look forward to it. Any other questions? All right. So with that said, we are going to have a promo. And while I have a captive audience for just a few more moments, I do want to go through Tom Big Al Schreider's 1-minute presentation because I think this is a really good way to share the benefits of this business fast. So Tom Big Al Schreider is a big fan of a 1-minute presentation. He says, our business is healthy coffee. If you want to earn next to $500 a month, here are the 3 things that you need to do. First and foremost, don't change, right? Do exactly everything that you're doing. Keep recommending the things that you would typically recommend, like restaurants and movies and things like that. We're actually in the healthy coffee business, which means you can enjoy our coffee every day without worrying about your stomach. Additionally, our coffee helps you stay fit and is super relaxing. All you have to do to earn $500 extra a month is sit down with 2 new people each day and talk to them over coffee. At the end of 3 months, he says you'll have enough people drinking and sharing healthy coffee that you'll earn that $500. So I listened to a number of audios this last weekend before this last weekend at a network marketing mastermind thing. And they said, you know what, most people don't get into network marketing to make 100,000 or 200,000 or $1 million. Most people are going for that magic 500 extra a month. And this speaker, whose name is Art Jonak, he brought up Uber. He says Uber is worth something like $73 billion. They've got people all over the world, professionals. I know some doctors that are doing it, MBAs, you know, all kinds of really qualified people driving an Uber. And the average Uber driver earns $19 an hour. So figure if you want to earn $500 a month, at $19 an hour, you got to work 25 extra hours a month. And I would imagine that you could easily share coffee with 2 people a day every day for that amount of time. But the difference is at 3 months, once we have our regular customers and maybe a few distributors, we can stop working and still get that 500 a month and maybe even have some people that grow and make more. Uber, the day they stop working, they stop getting paid. So this is a really nice, simple presentation. I'll have it in the slides. You can look at it. I would encourage you that rather than sometimes overwhelming people with details, sometimes short is best. So I'll share with you, one of my team members asked me to do a 3-way call yesterday. So she has a nephew that's about to start chiropractic college, and he was visiting her at her clinic. She gave him some coffee, he fell in love with it, and she said, you know, there's a business opportunity here. You could start earning some money while you're at school. He says, that's awesome, I want to do it. So she put him on a 3-way call with me, and his name's Jay. I just asked him, I said, Jay, so tell me what you know so far. He goes, well, I know I love the coffee, I know I can make money, I know I want to do it. I said, cool, do you have a credit card handy? He says, I do. I said, right now they have a gold pack for $699. Are you ready to sign up? He said, yeah. And we got him in the computer and we got him signed up at a gold pack. Now, the reason I mention that is I guarantee you my first year in this business, I would have probably spent 20 minutes talking to him about Ganoderma. I would have jumped into the dual team, the compensation plan, the 8 ways to get paid, the car bonus, all this other stuff. But reality is he was ready to join. And so there's a guy who kind of mostly rubs me the wrong way, but he's a good trainer. His name is Grant Cardone. And he wrote a book called The 10X Rule and other books on sales. But he says close early and often. So once you finish this 1-minute presentation, you just ask people, so what do you think? And they might say, you know what, this is awesome. I'm in, right? And if they do, we go ahead and we sign them up. So we are actually going to have another Zoom at 8:30. If my clock is right, it's 7:38, so it's almost an hour from now. But at 8:30, we're going to talk about how to maximize the packs. And we've actually done a pretty good job with that. One of the things that I would encourage you to do if you're on this, and if you were at the expo this weekend, awesome. If you weren't, there's no substitute for these big events. They're always massive at launching businesses. And there were so many inspiring stories and just those little tweaks in your technique that will help you just simply get better. So with that said, I'm going to stop.